Hey guys, it's Chris from Highline Guitars, and you're watching another episode of From the Luthier's Workbench. Well, in this episode, I think I will be talking about a guitar which I have just started building, and that is a new Highline Echo, which is my double cutaway design. And right now, what I'm working on is the neck, and once I have the neck done, I can start to make the body. And this is the blank. It's a mahogany body with a flamed maple book match top. And I've already actually started carving the back of it. And you can see I've got my comfort contour here, and then there's a front comfort contour, and then I've got the control cavity. But this is going to be kind of a cool build, because what I plan to do once I have the body and the neck finished and I bring those two together, I'm going to be clear coating this with that new Solar Res I Can't Believe It's Not lacquer, which is that UV curable resin. And hopefully I'll be able to do that next week and feature that process in the next episode. But we're coming up on Christmas 2018, so I think there's like 8 shopping days left or something like that. So I'm pretty busy right now, and I will just have to see how that goes. But where things stand with this build is kind of interesting, and I think it warrants some discussion, and that is the Highline Guitars workflow process. And what I typically do when I build a guitar, even though I'm building it using all CNC technology to do all the cutting and carving and slotting the fretboard and doing all that, I like to make the neck first, because I like to use the neck heel to determine the depth of the pocket that the neck is going to fit into in the body. And like I said, even though it's all done with CNC, because of the amount of sanding and finish work that's done, that dimension can fluctuate somewhat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish sanding the neck all the way to perfection. And probably that's going to be around 220, 320, 400 grit, somewhere in that area. And then what I'll do is I'll press in the frets. And once I've done that, I can measure the thickness of the heel right along the center line. And that will include the height of the fret. So I'll have an overall dimension here. And then what I'll do next is I will measure the bridge. And in this case, I'm going to be using a hardtail bridge. And what I'll do is I'll lower the saddle all the way down to where it's touching the bridge plate. And then I will measure from the bottom of that bridge plate to the bottom of the notch that the strings will sit in. And I'm mostly concerned about the 2 center saddles, because that's where the radius of the fretboard is at its peak. And what I can do is I can take that dimension of the bridge and subtract it from the thickness of my neck heel, including the fret wire, and that will give me an idea of how deep I need to make the neck pocket when I route the body. So I have to have all that work done before I can actually carve the top of this body. And once I've got that, it's just a quick matter of carving the top. Then I'm at a point where I can start to, where I can bring the neck to the body, glue that in, and then do all the final finish sanding. And then I can start to apply my finish, which in this case, like I said, it's going to be top coated with the I Can't Believe It's Not lacquer from Solar Res. But I plan to stain it, and I'm going to probably stain it with just an oil-based stain, and I'll use one shade for the top of the guitar as well as the back of the neck, which is flame maple. And then I'll use a different shade for the mahogany on the back. And I'm not going to do anything to the fretboard, because the fretboard is rosewood and it really doesn't need anything clear coating it. Now, what I plan to do when I apply the Solar Res is I'm going to be using a foam brush to apply it. You can spray the Solar Res, but I know a lot of you out there don't have spray equipment, and you're always looking for a way to clear coat your guitars so that it looks like a high-level, professional, high-gloss finish. But because you don't have that spray equipment, you're kind of limited in what you're able to do. And this product will really allow you to achieve that and achieve it extremely quickly. In fact, I'm coming to a point where I'm calling, I can't believe it's not lacquer, a true oil killer. And I think you'll see why when I do the demo on this product. So what I'm doing right now with this neck is, even though I radiused the fretboard with my CNC machine, I went back and added my mother of pearl marker dots. So I have to sand those down flush. And I like to fine tune the radius that I generated with the CNC machine, because CNC machines, they can achieve a pretty high level of finish, but there still are some very faint tool marks that are left in the surface, and so I want to get rid of those. And I'm doing that by using a radius sanding block, which incidentally I made on my CNC machine. And all I'm doing is I'm sanding out those tool marks, and I'm using some 100 grit sandpaper. And once I'm done with this, I'll move to probably a 150, and then I'll finish with 220. But I have a kind of an interesting technique in how I sand the radius. And this is something that I learned years ago in another life where I was grinding optics for telescopes. And one of the things that I learned is that when you're using a repetitive sanding stroke, you have to vary that stroke frequently. If you don't, if there's any flaw in your sanding stroke, and you probably won't even know there is one, it just gets repeated. And eventually that repetition of error shows up in your radius. So you end up with a radius that isn't perfectly accurate. So what I do is I'll sand, and then I'll constantly flip around the workpiece as I'm sanding, so that I'm not going to be putting the same error in the same place. But then what I'll also do is I'll shift my position, and I'm just constantly changing how this piece is being sanded. And I do this until I get the surface nice and smooth and I've removed any of the tool marks. But by doing that, the one thing that stays constant is the radius in my sanding block, but everything else is constantly changing, so I'm not introducing error into the sanding stroke. And if I am, I'm canceling it out by constantly moving around and shifting the workpiece as it relates to the sanding stroke. So that's pretty much really all I've got for this week, and I hope you have a great weekend and a great week ahead. Again, Christmas 2018 is coming up, so I hope you all have a very Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. I hope those of you out there who practice Judaism had a great Hanukkah, and those of you who are into Kwanzaa, I hope you have a great Kwanzaa. You know, I'm trying to nail all of them. So we will see you in the next episode. Take care.